The shadows of Blackthorn Castle. On the windswept cliffs of northern Scotland, shrouded in mist and legend, stands Blackthorn Castle. Its crumbling walls and towering spires cast long, jagged shadows over the desolate moorland below. For centuries, the castle has been abandoned, a relic of a bygone era, its dark history whispered among the locals who dare not venture near. Many believe the castle to be cursed, haunted by the restless spirits of its tragic past. Chapter 1: The Arrival. Dr. Evelyn Harrington, a renowned historian and skeptic of the supernatural, received a letter inviting her to Blackthorn Castle. The letter, written in an elegant, old-fashioned script, promised the discovery of a lifetime, an untouched archive of medieval manuscripts hidden within the castle walls. Intrigued and eager to debunk the myths surrounding the castle, she set off for Scotland, accompanied by her assistant, James. They arrived at the castle as dusk settled, the setting sun casting an eerie glow over the ancient stonework. The massive iron gates creaked open, revealing a long, overgrown path leading to the main entrance. As they approached, a chill wind howled through the battlements, and the heavy wooden doors groaned as they pushed them open. Inside, the castle was a labyrinth of dark corridors and grand, decaying halls. The air was thick with dust and the scent of mildew. Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine, but she dismissed it as excitement and the cold. They set up camp in the Grand Hall, a vast room adorned with faded tapestries and a massive stone fireplace. Chapter 2: The First Night. As night fell, the castle seemed to come alive with sounds. The wind whistled through the cracks in the stone, and the distant echoes of footsteps reverberated through the corridors. James, uneasy but determined, insisted it was just the castle settling. Evelyn, more curious than fearful, decided to explore. Armed with a flashlight and a map from the 19th century, they ventured deeper into the castle. The map led them to a hidden passage behind a tapestry, descending into the bowels of the castle. The air grew colder and more oppressive as they descended, their footsteps echoing in the silence. At the bottom, they found a small, dusty room lined with ancient books and scrolls. Evelyn's excitement peaked as she began to examine the texts, but her joy was short-lived. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the halls, freezing her in place. James, pale and trembling, insisted they return to the Grand Hall, but Evelyn refused to leave her discovery. Chapter 3: The Haunting. The scream was only the beginning. Over the next few days, the castle seemed to conspire against them. Doors slammed shut on their own, whispers echoed through empty corridors, and shadowy figures flitted at the edge of their vision. Evelyn tried to rationalize the occurrences, but even her skepticism was tested. One night, while examining a particularly intriguing manuscript, Evelyn felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She turned, expecting to see James, but found no one there. Panic set in as she realized the shadows in the room were moving, coalescing into a dark, humanoid form. She screamed for James, who rushed in to find her pale and trembling, the manuscript scattered at her feet. James convinced Evelyn to leave, but as they made their way to the exit, the castle seemed to close in on them. The corridors twisted and turned, leading them in circles. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, calling Evelyn's name. They stumbled into a forgotten chamber, the door slamming shut behind them. Chapter 4: The Dark History. Trapped and terrified, Evelyn and James discovered the true history of Blackthorn Castle. The chamber was filled with portraits of the Blackthorn family, their eyes seeming to follow them. In the center of the room stood an ornate, ancient book bound in human skin. The book told the story of Lord Blackthorn, a tyrannical ruler who dabbled in dark magic. Desperate to maintain his power, he made a pact with malevolent spirits, sacrificing his family and subjects in a horrific ritual. The spirits, bound to the castle, sought vengeance on anyone who disturbed their resting place. As Evelyn read, the temperature plummeted, and the shadows grew darker. The spirits, awakened by her intrusion, began to manifest. Spectral figures with hollow eyes and twisted forms emerged from the walls, their wails filling the chamber. James tried to break down the door, but it held fast. Chapter 5: The Descent. Determined to understand the full extent of the castle's dark history, Evelyn and James descended deeper into the castle's underbelly, guided by cryptic passages in the ancient book. The passages twisted and turned, leading them to an even more hidden part of the castle, a forgotten dungeon. The air was damp and rank with decay, the walls slick with moisture. Rusting chains hung from the walls, remnants of the castle's brutal past. Skeletons lay in various states of disarray, their hollow eye sockets seeming to watch the intruders. Evelyn, though horrified, was driven by an insatiable curiosity. She sifted through the remains, uncovering personal effects that told the stories of the castle's many victims. James, growing increasingly paranoid, urged her to hurry. He spoke of feeling watched, of seeing movement in the corners of his vision. Evelyn dismissed his concerns, attributing them to nerves, but even she could not deny the growing sense of dread that pervaded the dungeon. Chapter 6: The Unveiling. In the deepest part of the dungeon, they found a massive iron door, sealed with arcane symbols. The book spoke of this door as the gateway to the heart of the castle's power, where Lord Blackthorn had performed his final, most terrible ritual. Evelyn, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and excitement, began to decipher the symbols. As she spoke the incantation, the door creaked open, revealing a vast chamber illuminated by an eerie, pulsating light. In the center of the room stood a stone altar, stained with centuries-old blood. Surrounding the altar were statues of grotesque, otherworldly beings, their eyes glittering with malevolence. The air was thick with the stench of death and decay. As they approached the altar, the shadows in the room seemed to come alive, coalescing into the forms of the castle's tormented spirits. They wailed and gnashed their teeth, their eyes burning with hatred. Chapter 7: The Ritual. Evelyn realized that to escape, they would need to perform a counter-ritual, one that would banish the spirits and break the castle's curse. The ancient book contained the instructions, but it required a sacrifice, a life for a life. Desperate, Evelyn and James argued about what to do. In the midst of their argument, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, the ghost of Lord Blackthorn himself. His eyes glowed with an unholy light, and his voice was a chilling whisper that echoed through the chamber. "You have trespassed on sacred ground," he hissed. "You will pay the price." As the spirits closed in, Evelyn made a fateful decision. She recited the counter-ritual, invoking the ancient words that would banish the spirits. As she spoke, the chamber shook, and the statues seemed to come alive, their eyes glowing with a fierce light. James, realizing the gravity of the situation, stepped forward to offer himself as the sacrifice. Evelyn tried to stop him, but it was too late. James spoke the final words of the ritual, and the spirits screamed in rage as they were drawn back into the walls. Chapter 8: The Aftermath. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The spirits were gone, and the castle's curse was broken. Evelyn, devastated by the loss of her friend, left the castle, vowing never to return. She returned to London, her skepticism shattered and her heart heavy with grief. She published her findings, but few believed her story. The manuscript, now known as the Blackthorn Grimoire, was locked away, its dark secrets hidden from the world. Blackthorn Castle remains abandoned, a dark silhouette on the Scottish cliffs, its haunted halls waiting for the next curious soul to awaken the shadows. Chapter 9: The Legacy. Years passed, and Blackthorn Castle became a cautionary tale, its dark history fading into obscurity. Evelyn, now an old woman, lived in seclusion, haunted by the memories of that fateful expedition. She dedicated her remaining years to studying the occult, hoping to find a way to bring James back, but the knowledge eluded her. The castle, however, did not remain forgotten. Rumors persisted of strange lights and ghostly apparitions, of screams echoing through the moors at night. The locals, once dismissive of the legends, now spoke in hushed tones of the castle's dark power. Chapter 10: The Return. Decades later, a new generation of researchers, inspired by Evelyn's work, decided to investigate Blackthorn Castle. Among them was Dr. Emily Harrington, Evelyn's granddaughter, who had grown up hearing her grandmother's stories. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily and her team set off for the castle, armed with modern technology and a healthy dose of skepticism. As they approached the castle, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air was thick with an unnatural chill, and the castle loomed ahead, a dark, foreboding presence. They set up camp in the Grand Hall, much like Evelyn had done years before. Chapter 11, The Awakening. The first night was eerily quiet, but as they began to explore the castle's malevolent spirit reawakened. Equipment malfunctioned, strange noises echoed through the halls, and shadowy figures appeared and disappeared at the edge of their vision. Emily, driven by her grandmother's legacy, pressed on, determined to find the truth. In the library, they found Evelyn's notes, meticulously preserved. Emily pored over them, piecing together the story of Lord Blackthorn and the dark ritual. As she read, a sense of dread settled over her. The more she learned, the more she realized the danger they were in. Chapter 12, The Final Confrontation. Emily and her team descended into the dungeon, following the same path Evelyn had taken. The air grew colder, the darkness more oppressive. They found the iron door and, with great effort, managed to open it. The chamber beyond was just as Evelyn had described, the altar still stained with blood. As they prepared to perform the counter-ritual, the shadows in the room began to move. The spirits, awakened by their intrusion, surrounded them. Emily recited the incantation, but it was clear that the castle demanded a sacrifice. One of her team members, a young man named Thomas, stepped forward. Emily tried to stop him, but he insisted, understanding the gravity of the situation. He spoke the final words, and the spirits screamed in rage as they were drawn back into the walls. The castle fell silent, the curse lifted once more. Emily, heartbroken by the loss of her friend, left the castle, vowing to ensure its dark secrets remained hidden. She published her findings, corroborating her grandmother's story, and the Blackthorn Grimoire was locked away in a secure vault. Blackthorn Castle, now a legend, stands abandoned on the Scottish cliffs, a dark silhouette against the sky. Its haunted halls wait in silence, ready for the next curious soul to awaken the shadows and uncover the secrets of its tragic past.
Don't forget to subscribe.